All right, we're on in that edition. We're on page 6, and we're in the author's introduction, and we're in the middle of the page. It starts with the word v'kevan.
Thank you.
You have it in the
I'm gonna learn. Which is the
right there, page 6. V'kevan, v'kevan shekvar his ametz.
left the shelves next to the truck.
So we're still in the introduction of the Ramchal to Mesilas Yesharim, which is really very important to the whole sefer. It's not really, it's really integral to the entire book. What we read so far, we learned so far, is that he's. Before I begin, God willing, we're all going to get these Mesilas Yesharims from Art Scroll, the elucidated edition, which Rabbi Naaman mentioned he was involved with making, and it's really good because one of my friends helped write it. He's in the cover here, Rabbi Uriel Himberg.
So you should help support him.
So yeah, you should help support my friend, and if you want to participate in buying these,
No. We have the.
you can donate money to Rabbi Braun.
We have already.
But you could still, even though you could still donate money to Rabbi Braun.
The refreshments
to buy the
every
books.
morning. If you can donate
And-
money.
By the way, last week was fantastic. It was just
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
it was really great.
It's all right. So this is
Unbelievable.
yeah. So I mean, it's not the Elucidated Derech Hashem, but it's still very good. Right. So last week, 2 weeks ago, what we learned is that the Ramchal here is not writing anything that we don't know. Right. He's talking to people in his generation. It's not like we don't know anything, but he's writing it to remind us of things that you already know. But since they're so obvious, you tend to forget them. Certain things that are obvious truths. Excuse me. We sometimes forget what they are. So he's writing this book to remind us, and he says that you're not going to get a lot out of reading this book one time, but rather by repeating it over and over again. What's great about this edition is that after each chapter, they have a little summary of the chapter, so you can review it, like the Ramchal says, which is nice. And I think one of the main themes of this sefer is to stop and think, right? In Musar in general, and especially Mesilas Yesharim, the goal of learning this book is not just to gain knowledge of Judaism, that's what we're doing when we learn it, but also to take the lessons and make them part of our lives and to grow with them spiritually, especially the book Mesilas Yesharim and especially Musar Svarim, which are meant to teach us how to live a ethical life serving Hashem. It's very important to stop and think of the messages and contemplate them, and that's going to be a theme that sometimes, very often, people they don't grow in Yiddishkeit or grow in anything because they don't take the time to think. Everyone's so busy running here and there, and now especially with the advent of smartphones and everything else, we all get very distracted, and we don't. All right. We don't stop and think for more than 2 seconds. And just as a side point, there's a book called, I forgot what it's called, but if you ask me later, I can tell you. A fellow wrote a book about how using the internet actually is changing our brain structure, and that we're not able to focus for more than a few seconds. And not just that we're not able to focus, but actually the physical structure of our brains is changing because of it. But it's so important that if we don't sit and contemplate and think for a few minutes every day about these lessons, then that's the most important thing, that we need to take those lessons in our lives. So let's start. We're on V'kevan, page 6. Now I have to find on this page. Here it's page 6. V'kevan shekvar hisamis etzel kol chacham tzarech tmimus havoda v'chovas taharasa v'nikyona shezulas eila ena nirtzas v'adei klal ela nim'ezes mito'eves ki kol avavos darash Hashem v'chol yitzer machshavos humeven manena b'yom techecha im hisrashlo min ha'iyun hazeh v'henachnu davar shehu kol kach muta leinu shehu ikar ma'Hashem elokeinu shoel mi'imanu. So now that we know that to everyone it's true that to become a perfect person and to serve Hashem and to learn how to serve Hashem is such an integral part of life. What are we going to answer on the day that we all pass away and we have to answer to Hashem about how we live our life? Now, we all know that it's an important thing to serve Hashem. So if we don't take the time, meaning it's not like now all of us sitting here, it's not like we don't know that it's important to serve Hashem. We know that. We know it's important to serve Hashem. What are we going to answer Hashem after 120 when He asks us, well, you knew it was important, so what'd you do about it? If you know something is important, then obviously you spend the time dedicating yourself to learning about it and to improving in it. So if you don't do that, then what are you going to answer? What are we going to answer Hashem on that day? It was such an important thing. Could it be that we're going to spend our whole lives, arguing about or learning, studying things that aren't really relevant. Right, what are we going to do? We're going to spend our whole lives learning about things that we don't really need to do. And we're going to not study the most important thing, which is learning how to serve Hashem. And we're just going to leave that to mitzvahs anashul milumada. Meaning he's saying that, right, even they mention that even in yeshiva, let's say you're learning you're learning in yeshiva all day, Kudshim. Kudshim is the laws of the temple. So they're not relevant today, practically, because we don't have a temple. God willing, we will, and it will be practical. So you spend the whole day fighting about an obscure point in Kudshim, which is very important. It's a big mitzvah, and it's learning Torah. But on the other hand, you don't spend any time studying Musar about how you're supposed to properly serve Hashem. So he says, what's going to be when you go up to Hashem and he asks you why you were doing that? That's not going to be very good. Now he says, we're going to leave it, and you leave it to mitzvahs anashul milumada. So what is mitzvahs anashul milumada? Very important concept, which we probably all, at least myself, often get into this trap. Mitzvahs anashul milumada means doing mitzvahs by rote. Like we were talking about before, you don't think about what you're doing. You just get up in the morning, you go to shul, you put on tefillin, you don't think when you're putting on tefillin, wow, this is a big mitzvah. Hashem commanded me to do this. I'm getting close to Hashem by doing this. You daven, you don't think what the words mean, you run out, you get the coffee, and then the whole day, you don't think, you just do everything by rote. You don't think about what you're doing at all. So I don't know if you know this, there's a verse in Isaiah, in Yeshayahu, that talks about mitzvahs anashul milumada. What happens when we do mitzvahs anashul milumada? Vayomer Adoni Yan ki nigash ha'am hazeh. He said, for as much as the people draw near, b'fiv u'v'sfasav kibduni, they honor me with their lips, with their mouth. V'libo rachak mimani, their heart is far from me. V'tia yerasa maisi, mitzvahs anashul milumada, and their fear of me is just something that they do by rote. So that's Pasuk Yud Gimel. What does Pasuk Yud Dalet say when the Jewish people do mitzvahs by rote and they don't think about what they're doing? L'chein hineni Yosef lahafli as ha'am hazeh hafli v'fela. I'm going to do a punishment to them that is hafli v'fela, meaning it's bewildering. I'm going to punish them in a bewildering manner. They're going to lose their wisdom, and the wise people, the knowledge of the wise people will be hid. The Pasuk in Shayahu says that when we do mitzvahs anashul milumada, when we just do things by rote, there's going to be a terrible punishment. Meaning we're all here to serve Hashem and to go closer to Him, and it's great that we're doing mitzvahs, but if we don't think about what we're doing, that's very, very bad. Okay, so if we don't take time to look and see what is true fear of Hashem and what are the different parts of it, if we don't take the time to see what is true fearing of Hashem, how are we going to acquire it, right? If we don't know it, we can't acquire it. And how are we going to run away from the hevel, the nonsense of this world? I think here it's kind of similar to what he was writing in Derech Hashem, or he mentioned earlier also, that we're in a physical world, so the power of the physical is extremely strong in this world, and it's very easy to overcome the spiritual. He says that it's chol, right? It's profane, right? It's not like there's a constant infusion of holiness into the world. He says there are certain times, Derech Hashem said, like Shabbos and the holidays, where we have an infusion of holiness, where it's easier to get close to Hashem, but in general, it's a physical world where the physicality constantly overtakes us. The Ramchal is saying here that since we live in that world, if we don't actively remind ourselves of serving Hashem and what is true service of Hashem, then there's no chance, right? We're lost. We'll just be totally overtaken by the physical, and we won't have a chance to acquire the spiritual. So I think that is similar in that sense. We're just gonna forget about it, even though we know it's important. Ha'ava kamoken, loving Hashem like this. If we don't use all the means necessary to set up in our hearts love of Hashem, how are we going to find it? How will we have the desire to cling to Hashem and with His Torah? If we don't turn our attention to its greatness and its loftiness, that we should give birth in our hearts to this closeness. He's saying, right, spirituality is not a natural thing. Love of Hashem, you're not born, right? If you don't work on loving Hashem, you're not going to love Him. If you don't work on fearing Hashem, you're not going to fear Him, right? There's certain natural things in the world that we naturally have feelings of love and fear, different physical things, but Hashem, that's something that requires work. Later on, God willing, we'll talk about how do we acquire love of Hashem and fear of Hashem, and how actually love and fear can be related. Right? Abraham After next week's parsha, we're going to read about how Avram, after he did the Akedah, he was called a fearer of Hashem, one who feared Hashem. We also find that Avram Avinu was called someone who loved Hashem. So how do those two things work together? If you're interested in the meantime, I suggest looking at the Stipler and Birkas Peretz. But next week you have to come to find the answer to that.
Another teaser.
Yeah.
And the week after.
And the week after. And we might even have Linzer tarts. Okay. Also, I just want to mention this before I forgot. He brings it here in the story in the bottom. What's great about this edition also is he brings stories sometimes. It's a famous story that someone once asked Rav Yisrael Salanter. Rav Yisrael Salanter was the founder of the Musar movement, right? That there came a time in most yeshivas they have a seder where they learn Musar, where they learn how to improve themselves ethically, and that was started by Rav Yisrael Salanter. So there's a famous story that's told over. Okay, I wasn't sure the time period they said, but someone asked him, "I only have 15 minutes a day to study. What should I study? Should I study Gemara, Chumash, Midrash? Should I listen to the tape of Rabbi Eli Mansour? What should you do for those 15 minutes?" So he said, you should learn Musar. Because if you learn Musar, if you learn ethical teachings for 15 minutes, you'll find that you have more than 15 minutes to study Torah. That's what he answered him. And that's cited on page 11 of the Art School edition, which God willing we'll have soon. Okay. Right, so titar machshavteinu im lo nishtadel lenakosa min hamumim shematel bo hateva hagufani. Right, he says, how are we going to purify our hearts if we don't make an effort to purify ourselves from the natural mumim, the natural blemishes that come? Right, it's not like just by being alive in a physical world, you get drawn into the physical. So if you don't actively work against that, you're hopeless. Even midos, a person's character traits, right? You don't become a holy person just by through osmosis and through not working on it. Mi yashrem umi yataknim. Who's going to fix it? If you don't put your heart into it, when you don't put a lot of attention to it, a lot of precision. Right, if you do this, it'll be good for you, and you can teach the good to others also. Right? It's if you read certain Gadol biographies, if you read them, it looks like the Gadol, the big rabbi, was born with an amazing memory and amazing desire to learn Torah and perfect character traits, right? He knew Shas when he was 6 years old and he was perfect. But it's not true. All the big rabbis will tell you that they became big rabbis by constantly working on themselves. I think they even say with Rav Moshe Feinstein, I don't know, that there's a famous story where he got this brand new Gemara that was very beautiful, very expensive, and someone came in and they spilled ink on the Gemara, and he said, "Oh, now my Gemara has a nice blue tint, thank you." Right? He wasn't angry at all. And so they say he told somebody, I wasn't born like this. I had to work on it. You have to work to do that. I heard a story. And someone just reminded me of it. I forgot about it. Shmuel Kamenetsky. My Rosh Yeshiva said when it comes to character traits, there's nobody like him. He's the Rosh Yeshiva in Philadelphia. So he was at a Shiva house once, and there was a fellow who, when he was a kid, was kicked out of his yeshiva because he wasn't a good boy. And he came up to Shmuel Kamenetsky, again, one of the biggest rabbis in America, and said to him, "Hello, Shmuel, and I'm not calling you rabbi," like in front of everybody. So Rabbi Kamenetsky looked at him and smiled and said, "Why should you call me rabbi? We're friends." And he gave him a big hug. Right? So to be like that, it takes years of effort and working on yourself. The man, he's in his 90s, so he spent his whole life, contemplating about how to work on his midos, and that's how he became that. If you don't spend the time and you don't do it, there's no chance. Let's do a little more. Humasha Amru Shlema. This is what Shlomo says, King Solomon. Im tevaksheno kakesef, if you search for it like silver, ukumat monim, tachbashan, and you search for it like hidden gems, as tavan yiras Hashem, then you'll understand the fear of Hashem. So you have to search for it like money. I don't know if you're aware of this, but people work very hard to get money. And in the world, people come up with all types of schemes, and they work very hard. They spend 18-hour days trying to make money. I don't know if you've seen these people, but you think about how people do that for money. That's really how you're supposed to have that much effort when you want to serve Hashem. They say, I heard this once, that MGM, Metro Goldwyn and Mayer, for those who don't know, it's a movie company. So I forgot which one it was, but I think all of them were Jews. So they asked one of them, they said, apparently he slept like 4 hours a night. So they said, how do you sleep 4 hours a night? So he says, when you're making $1 million an hour, you learn to sleep 4 hours a night. So if we take that lesson, we're earning more than $1 million an hour. So Eina Omer as Tavin philosophia. So the pasuk doesn't say that if you search for it like money, then you'll understand philosophy. As Tavin Tuna, it doesn't say you'll understand astronomy. As Tavin Refuah, you'll understand medicine. As Tavin Dinim, you'll understand laws. As Tavin Halachas, you'll learn halachas. Ella, what does the pasuk say? As Tavin Yiras Hashem, you'll understand fear of Hashem. Harelecha shelahavin hayira. So that means to understand fear of Hashem. Tzarich levakish shasokah kesef lechapish shasokah batmonim. You have to search for it like money. Hadai eifo b'meshem malumad lanu me'avaseinu b'meshem before some etzel kol ben das dar klal. Do you think that means it's enough to just go with the general principles that you know? Well, I have different paragraphs. I'm gonna go with my paragraphs. Machlokas and paragraphs. Feldheim and article left to right to the editor. So is it? Do you think it's going to be enough to just go with the general principles that you were taught by your parents? Of course not. What you're going to have time to spend learning math, or even Gemara, you're going to have time to spend, but you're not going to have time to learn Musar about how to become a true servant of Hashem. How could you not dedicate the small amount of time to learning about Avodas Hashem, how to serve Hashem, if you're spending time with everything else? Now, I forgot who I saw this quoted from. So I think they quoted this on the bottom. It's just interesting. We see that fear of Hashem, right? He mentioned 2 weeks ago, we read that fear of Hashem people think is fasting all day, going to the mikvah in the snow, and doing like crazy stuff. So that's not fear of Hashem. Here he calls fear of Hashem wisdom, right? We don't usually think that fear of Hashem is wisdom. So why is fear of Hashem wisdom? Right? In Judaism, we don't believe that you can be an ignorant person and be a righteous person. One is you don't know what to do. The other is that one of the rabbis say, which is interesting, that part of fearing Hashem and the wisdom in it is that you have to know yourself. You have to know you have to know yourself, what you are lacking, what you have to improve in, because if you don't know that, then you don't stand a chance. But just if we could take out from this week that the most important, I think the most important thing to take out of it, besides, dedicating time to learning how to serve Hashem and to think and contemplate and not just go through life by rote, but actually think about God gave us a life, He gave us a soul, He gave us a body. It's a privilege. So let's think about why we're here and how to improve ourselves, and not just do a mitzvah anashim milumada. Yeah. Any questions? Okay, great. Page 12.